My manager revoked my approved vacation, so I got her demoted without saying a word. I work for a mid-sized marketing firm in Manhattan. I've been there for 4 years, long enough to know that our company runs on caffeine, deadlines, and a rotating door of managers who either burn out or get promoted so high they forget what empathy looks like. For most of my time there, I've been one of the reliable ones. I don't complain, I meet every deadline, and I take the weird, last-minute requests from clients in stride. I'm the kind of employee who managers usually like having. I'm dependable, organized, and quietly ambitious. Or at least, that's what I thought before Lydia showed up. Lydia became my direct manager about 8 months ago. She was in her early 30s, a sharp dresser, had her MBA from Columbia, and came with a reputation for efficiency. At first, I was impressed. She talked about streamlining our workflow, pushing for bigger clients, and rewarding initiative. But within a month, the facade cracked. Efficiency meant cutting corners, initiative meant doing her extra. Work for free and rewarding meant taking credit for your ideas during executive meetings. Still, I kept my head down. I was saving up PTO and overtime hours for a big reason: my brother's wedding in Italy. It had been planned for nearly a year. My entire family was flying over, and I'd been working extra hours for months to make sure my team wouldn't miss a beat while I was gone. Back in March, I submitted my vacation request for 8 days off in late August. Lydia approved it the next morning. She even said, "Good planning, Mia. I wish more people were this organized." I printed that approval email and kept it in a drawer in my desk. Fast forward to mid-August, everything was in place. I'd finished my client reports, trained my coworker James to cover a few accounts, and even prepped drafts for upcoming campaigns. I was ready. Flights were booked, the Airbnb was paid for, and dresses were steamed and packed. Then, one Monday morning, exactly 7 days before my flight, Lydia called me into her glass-walled office. She smiled that tight corporate smile and said, "Hey Mia, can we chat really quick?" Something in her tone made my stomach sink. She closed the door behind me and started with, "So, I've been reviewing the Q3 calendar, and unfortunately, your vacation overlaps with a major product launch we just got approved for." I blinked. "Right, but I already submitted my time off back in March. You approved it." She nodded, still smiling. "I know, and I appreciate that. But things have changed. Leadership wants us to put all hands on deck. So, I'm going to have to revoke your vacation approval." For a second, I thought I misheard her. "You're revoking it? You mean I can't go?" "Mia, I know this is inconvenient, but we need you here," she said, like she was talking to a child. "You're the only one who understands the Ferraro account, and I can't risk handing that off to someone else." I felt the heat rising in my chest. "Lydia, this isn't just a vacation. My brother's wedding is next week. Everything's booked. I already have your written approval." Her smile faded. "You can go to Italy another time. This is business critical." I wanted to scream. Instead, I said quietly, "You know that's not how it works. I've done everything by the book." She shrugged. "Then maybe next time plan around the company calendar." That's when I knew. This wasn't about the Ferraro account. This was about control. Lydia didn't like that I had boundaries. She didn't like that I'd worked things out so cleanly that she couldn't use me last minute. And she definitely didn't like that other people respected me more than they did her. I left her office shaking. By the end of the day, she'd sent out an email to HR saying I'd withdrawn my vacation request. That night, I sat in my tiny Brooklyn apartment, staring at my laptop. My family group chat was buzzing with excitement about the trip. Everyone was counting down days, posting photos of their suitcases, and my mom talked about how proud she was that both her kids were successful in coming together for something special. I felt sick. Then, out of nowhere, James, my coworker and closest friend at work, texted me. "Lydia just told me to take over your accounts for next week's launch. Are you sure you're not going?" That's when it hit me. She didn't need me there. She already reassigned my work. She just wanted to ruin my plans. And I decided right then I wasn't going to let her. By Tuesday morning, I was in damage control mode. I emailed HR with a polite but firm message. "Hi, just to clarify, I did not withdraw my vacation request. My manager, Lydia, has revoked previously approved PTO for a family wedding. Please advise." They didn't reply that day. By Wednesday, I got a one-line response. "Hi, Mia. Lydia has communicated that business needs take precedence. Please discuss directly with your manager. Translation: We're not getting involved. I tried to keep calm, but it was impossible. Every time I saw Lydia strolling around the office with that smug confidence, I had to bite my tongue. She'd even started hinting that I was unreliable, telling coworkers, "I'm not sure if Mia's fully committed lately." She was setting me up, making sure that if I pushed back, I'd look like the problem. On Thursday, James pulled me aside. "She's bad-mouthing you to the directors," he said quietly. "She said you're being difficult about time off." My heart dropped. That's when James, bless him, looked me in the eye and said, "If she's trying to tank you, you might as well protect yourself." I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I wanted proof. On Friday, Lydia called me into her office again. "Just checking that you've canceled your travel plans?" "No," I said simply. "I'm still planning to go." She raised an eyebrow. "Mia, that would be considered job abandonment." Didn't reply. I just looked at her, steady and silent. She smirked, like she'd already won. "I'll take that as confirmation you'll be working next week." I walked out, trembling but oddly calm inside. Because while she was busy playing her petty game, I had something she didn't: allies. James wasn't the only one who saw what was happening. A few others quietly told me they'd had similar run-ins with her. Lydia was known for taking credit for projects, forgetting to nominate people for bonuses, and canceling team events that made her look bad. It was a pattern, and I had a feeling she'd picked the wrong person to push this far. I was done playing nice. Monday morning came faster than I wanted. Instead of waking up to my alarm at 6:30, rushing to the subway, and dreading another day under Lydia's glare, I woke up to the soft hum of plane engines. The city that never sleeps faded beneath me as I flew toward Rome, half terrified and half exhilarated. I'd made my decision. I was going. The moment we landed, sunlight poured through the airplane window like a promise. I turned my phone on, and immediately it vibrated with a dozen notifications. 3 missed calls from Lydia, 1 voicemail from HR, and a text from James. "She's furious. Sent an all-hands email calling you unreachable and unprofessional. Hang in there." My heart dropped for a second, then steadied. She was already trying to spin the story. Fine, let her. That night, I sat on a hotel balcony in Florence, watching the sunset bleed into the rooftops. My parents were downstairs laughing with my brother and his fiancée, talking about wine and flowers and speeches. For the first time in months, I felt free. I didn't check my email. I didn't think about campaigns or clients. I thought about me. The wedding itself was magical. It took place in a small villa, ivy climbing the walls. My brother wore a crisp navy suit, his bride glowing under fairy lights. During dinner, my dad raised a glass and said, "To family, the most important thing." Everyone cheersed, but I caught the irony in that line and couldn't help but smile. Still, there was a weight in the back of my mind. I knew Lydia would retaliate somehow. I just didn't know how hard she'd hit. When I flew back to New York, jet-lagged and nervous, I walked into the office on Wednesday morning. The air felt different, heavy. Conversations paused when I entered. A few coworkers gave me sympathetic glances. Others avoided eye contact. Lydia was at her desk, scrolling through emails like nothing had happened. She didn't look up when I walked past. At 10 a.m., I got a meeting invite from HR. Mandatory discussion, 11:30. I took a deep breath and went. When I entered the conference room, Lydia was already there, her expression smug and composed. The HR rep, Mark, sat across from her, a neutral smile pasted on. "Thanks for joining us, Mia," he said smoothly. "We wanted to clarify a few details regarding your recent absence." "Of course." Lydia leaned forward. "I just want to note for the record that Mia left during a major product launch without approval. She didn't communicate properly, and it put the team in a difficult position." I opened my folder and slid a stack of papers across the table. "Actually, I did communicate. This is the original PTO approval from March, signed by Lydia. Here are also screenshots of our Slack messages confirming my dates. And here's my itinerary and the email thread where Lydia revoked my approval less than a week before departure." Mark's eyebrows rose slightly. Lydia blinked, her mouth tightening. I also have witnesses, I added. James and a few others can confirm I'd been training him for weeks to handle my clients. So, the idea that my absence was unplanned is inaccurate. Mark took his time reading through the papers. Lydia shifted in her chair. Finally, Mark looked up. Lydia, did you approve this originally? She hesitated. Yes, but did you file a withdrawal form on Mia's behalf? I thought she had. So, to confirm, Mark said evenly, Mia never withdrew her request herself? Lydia crossed her arms and looked away. We needed her presence, that's all. Mark nodded. All right, thank you both. We'll review this and follow up. The meeting ended quietly. Lydia's confidence had cracked. I saw it in her jaw and the way she avoided my eyes. By the end of that day, half the office had heard something went down in HR. By the end of the week, people were whispering openly. James texted me one night. They're interviewing everyone. Lydia's losing it. She asked me to stay loyal, whatever that means. It was out of my hands now, and for the first time I wasn't scared. I was calm, because I'd done everything right. Over the next 2 weeks, HR quietly but thoroughly started pulling threads. They called in team members one by one. I didn't know exactly what everyone said, but I heard pieces. Co-workers mentioning how Lydia took credit for others' work, cut PTO short, and even threatened to adjust performance reviews for people who annoyed her. It turned out my situation wasn't unique. It was just the first one anyone documented. James told me one afternoon, everyone's had some story about her. You just had proof. By week 3, Lydia was avoiding the office entirely. She started working remotely, which we all knew was corporate code for damage control. Then, one Wednesday morning, Mark appeared at our desks with the director of operations. Lydia's been placed on administrative leave pending review, he said simply. Mia, thank you for your cooperation. That was it. No drama, no shouting, just quiet justice sliding into place. The office felt lighter instantly. People laughed more. Deadlines weren't so tense. Even the air seemed easier to breathe. Over the next month, HR wrapped up their investigation. Rumors trickled out that they'd confirmed that Lydia falsified HR documentation, misrepresented vacation policies, and retaliated against employees who questioned her. By mid-October, she'd been demoted to an associate role in a completely different department, one with no team to boss around. It wasn't an email blast. It wasn't an announcement. It just happened. Her name disappeared from our department's chart. A few days later, I got a private email from the director of operations. Mia, thank you for maintaining professionalism through this situation. We're implementing new safeguards in our PTO policy to prevent future issues. Your integrity is appreciated. I didn't need fireworks. That one paragraph felt better than any confrontation ever could. Still, part of me couldn't help wondering how Lydia took it. The woman who'd loved control, now stripped of it completely. James joked one day, she's in the basement office. Now, no windows. Karma has a sense of humor. I just smiled. Life after Lydia's administrative leave felt surreal at first. It was almost like someone had lifted a heavy weight off the entire office. Deadlines felt manageable, the team laughed at meetings again, and people started speaking up with ideas without fear of her immediate criticism. I'd never realized just how much tension she'd been carrying into the room every day until it was gone. Still, there was always a part of me wary. I knew Lydia had spent months trying to set me up, and now, with her gone, I was left wondering what she might try next from afar. But instead of fear, I felt a calm determination. I'd done my part. I'd documented everything, trained James, and stayed professional. Now it was up to HR and upper management to follow through. A few weeks later, I got a calendar invite marked end-of-year review with the director of operations. I assumed it would be a routine performance discussion. Instead, the meeting began with the director leaning back and smiling. Mia, I'll get straight to the point. Since Lydia's reassignment, your division's productivity has skyrocketed. Feedback from clients and peers consistently mentions your leadership, organization, and ability to handle challenging situations. Your handling of the PTO conflict didn't go unnoticed either. I blinked, unsure what to say. He continued, in recognition of your performance and professionalism, we'd like to promote you to team lead effective January. It took a moment to process. Lydia had spent months trying to make me look bad, spreading rumors about my professionalism, undermining my reputation. And yet here I was, being formally recognized for the exact traits she had tried to destroy. When I returned to my desk, James immediately handed me a small box of cupcakes he'd decorated with little crowns. "Congrats, Your Majesty," he joked, and the rest of the team cheered quietly. Even the normally stoic office manager gave me a thumbs up. I realized then that Lydia had underestimated something crucial: the quiet professionalism that comes from doing things the right way. She'd relied on fear and manipulation. I relied on integrity, patience, and careful documentation. A few days later, I ran into Lydia in the elevator. She glanced at my badge, now proudly displaying team lead, and muttered, "Enjoy it while it lasts." I smiled politely. "I plan to," I said, stepping out first. She stayed behind, silent, her usual confidence visibly shaken. That was the last real conversation we ever had. By February, her name disappeared entirely from our department. Rumor had it she resigned quietly, unable to cope with the professional embarrassment of her demotion and the knowledge that the entire office had seen through her manipulations. Meanwhile, I found myself quietly relishing the subtle poetic justice. I had simply done my job, maintained professionalism, and let the truth speak for itself. Watching her self-inflicted downfall was almost secondary. The real victory was my peace of mind, the respect of my peers, and a renewed sense of purpose. By late spring, life at work had fully returned to normal. Except this time, it was better. The office had shifted subtly but significantly. HR had instituted a policy change. No manager could unilaterally revoke previously approved PTO without executive approval. Every employee had to receive written confirmation. Every request was traceable. I also noticed the small ways the team had changed. Colleagues were more confident in pushing back respectfully when necessary. Ideas that might have been stifled under Lydia were now welcomed. James, of course, continued to be my sounding bored and informal co-lead, often joking that he'd survived the chaos. By summer, I finally booked another vacation, this time to Paris. I submitted my PTO request months in advance, and Rebecca, our new manager, approved it immediately. She even added in her approval, "Enjoy it, Mia. You've earned it." Chakrisi. The trip, I wandered cobblestone streets, sipped coffee in quiet cafes, and watched the Seine glow under the afternoon sun. I thought about Lydia, about how she'd tried to control everything, and about the lessons I'd learned along the way. She had taught me, unintentionally, that some battles aren't won through confrontation or anger. They're won by staying professional, documenting the truth, and waiting for the consequences to arrive naturally. When I returned from Paris, I came back to an office where my name was on the door, my team respected me, and the culture had genuinely improved. A few months later, I heard Lydia had moved to freelancing, or so her LinkedIn claimed. I didn't reach out. I didn't need to gloat. The universe had done its work. Now, every time someone asks about the PTO policy or mentions work-life balance, I smile and say, let's just say I helped make that rule. It's my small, quiet way of acknowledging the long road it took to reach this equilibrium. I've learned something important. Real revenge isn't about yelling, scheming, or public humiliation. Real revenge is living better, more freely, and more honorably than anyone who tried to undermine you ever could. It's about showing that integrity, patience, and consistency carry far more weight than intimidation ever will. And sometimes, the universe hands out justice quietly, elegantly, and in a way that's far more satisfying than any immediate retaliation could ever be.